It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso, right here on SABC3. It's a fabulous Tuesday. Why? Because finally we got to unveil the big secret that we've been keeping from you all at home. McCafe in studio right now. This is what you get to wake up to every single morning. That is a reason to put a smile on your face. Enjoy it with us right now. We are heading over to Dr. Darren Green. It's for our health talk, and we're talking being hangry. What does that mean? Definitely no hangry going on here, though.
No, not on that side of the studio, but it's dry this side. We have donuts here, man. Where are those donuts? There is nothing worse, and I speak from personal experience, than reaching your lunch break at work, or maybe you're at school and realizing that you forgot your food at home, or when you've been driving for 4 hours to get back from your holiday after skipping breakfast. You're filled with an uncontrollable feeling of hunger mixed with absolute Hulk-like rage, more commonly known as being hangry. We're back with our resident doctor. You look so happy this morning. Clearly you had your breakfast before coming here, man. Do you get hangry yourself?
I reckon I do. I think it's brought on when you see your children hangry, because they certainly do get angry.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Darren Green, you know what? You know, hunger, it takes over your thought process, and you can think of nothing but food when you're super duper hungry. But what's the first thing that takes place in the body during this process?
What's actually happening?
Yeah, why you get hungry in the first place. I think the human body is it's fascinating in the sense that the vital organs, like the brain and the heart, they require energy to perform. Your best chance at surviving is actually when you are supplying a source of energy to the brain to look at exits, to escape threats every day and survive. But also you need oxygen, nutrients, that kind of thing. And the heart itself also, oxygen, nutrients. And so do all the other muscles in the body. So obviously food and a source of energy is vital for life. As we can see when people starve to death or do hunger strikes, for example. So the purpose of hunger is to ensure survival of the species, unlike so many of us that believe the purpose of eating is just to enjoy the taste, the food, the flavor. So how you view food in this relationship is quite important going forward.
I mean, we'll get into that relationship between the psychological elements. So this is our gene pool just saying, get up, eat something, eat something. Let's fast forward to 12 hours now after not eating. What's going on inside the body?
So if you don't eat, basically your body uses up, firstly, the immediate source of energy is the blood sugar. So the sugar that's already been broken down and it's circulating in the bloodstream. So that gets used first. When that's depleted, and when you're hitting 12 hours of not eating, normally that then starts having used up all that sugar in the bloodstream, where you then have to start converting the stored sugar, which is called glycogen in the liver, into a form that then can be released into the blood for immediate use. That breaking down process is essential. When you go beyond the 12 hours into 2 or 3 days, the process then starts moving not just from the stored glycogen in the liver, but to the stored glycogen in the muscle cells. And how it works long term is when you've used up the stored glycogen in the liver, the muscle cells, you then start moving into other forms of other sources of energy, where you start then using energy from muscle directly.
Sure.
I'm actually panicking as I use them all. It's like, oh my word, that would be my absolute worst nightmare.
Dr. Darren Green, at what point does starvation kick in? What happens to the body? Because I always know when you're eating healthy and you're trying to be healthy, they always say never skip a meal because your body will absorb everything once you eat. Is that true?
Interesting. So your body works on a premise that it predicts when you're going to eat.
Okay.
So what you do for a period as short as even 2 days tells your brain and your body when it should and shouldn't expect the next meal. So that routine is actually programmed and remembered. So your body basically releases, and the big word with hunger and sugar control is insulin resistance. It's linked to diabetes, it's linked to obesity and all the other lifestyle diseases associated with it. So insulin obviously being very important, because when you eat, the insulin levels spike. And thus all the excitement and controversy around things like fasting and intermittent fasting. So eating more meals a day, for example, spikes your insulin levels more frequently.
Okay, that picture's just making people hangry at home right now. Looking at that, please, that's not your reality. We're going to get into the relationship between emotions and hunger in our next session.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Well done to all of these South African artists that really shone at the Cape Town International Jazz Festival. Now we are talking about being hangry, the relationship between being hungry and our emotional states. Why is there a relationship between these two things? Break it down for us. Why? Where does the psychology begin and the physiology end? How does this all work?
The feeling of blood sugar levels dropping is one where you feel you're actually falling into a dark hole. So your energy levels are going down. And it's interesting, no matter what your age, your status, what happens is you try and up that energy by doing different things in your behavior. Some people start acting differently, making specific jokes. Their conversation even changes. Children start jumping around. Adults start buying fast food at the garage.
Smashing coffee in the face,
That's
yeah.
it, that's right. And then they start yearning for high energy or high calorie intake foods. That's why people yearn for fast food at 2 in the morning after a rough night out or after doing a long shift. So high fat content food for lots and lots of high energy, or sugary drinks, chocolates, for example. They help people over that. So the emotional link is unbelievable. I mean, it threatens your survival being low in terms of calorie intake.
Well, you just mentioned the calorie intake, and I was going to ask, does low blood sugar levels play a role in your hunger state?
It certainly does. So low blood sugar levels mean, obviously...
It looks good, huh?
It does look amazing.
Your brain, look at that, your brain obviously starts feeling threatened, like it's going to shut down, and then you have to act on it. So you develop then the moody frustration to actually ingest or get something. Ask anyone that lives with a diabetic, type 1 diabetic, while they sleep next to them, how they fear a hypoglycemic episode in the middle of the night. And that's a reality.
I know we're making light of this topic, and that's certainly on our end of the scale, but we know that there are conditions
That's
where
quite a
it
big
really
one,
is
yeah.
serious. When you mentioned there, after a long shift or a big night out, that mass calorie load, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, it's fine, because I'm so hungry, I'm just going to absorb all of this and it's not going to be bad for me. How dangerous can that be, taking in that mass calorie atom bomb at those times? Or does it just get absorbed into blood sugar immediately?
No, good question. So depending on what you're consuming, the different food groups take different time periods to be broken down, looking at things like obviously high fatty content foods versus readily available sugars in the form of syrup in drinks and cocktails and that kind of. They spike your blood sugar levels quite quickly. Within minutes, you start feeling a bit energized and up. The problem comes in as your body's response to that, as it spikes the insulin, and then it dips into a real slump, obviously an hour later. And that's when you feel even lower than you did before you
I've
consumed the
experienced
high
that
sugar.
running
So
half marathons and marathons where literally seconds later you crash.
it's just, you just crash. So that's the dangerous part.
Okay, well, we're going to be back with Dr. Darren Green as we continue our conversation around hunger. And this time round, next time round, in fact, we'll be talking about hunger and fasting, the effects that has. So don't go anywhere.
Put the
we'll be
burger
back.
picture up again, please.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso. Our lines are open. That number is 0214309881. Dr. Darren Green with us in studio as we have our conversation around hunger and the emotions of angry and being hangry. And at the moment, we have Zunel on the line from Bloemfontein. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Tim. How are you guys?
Very well,
very
thank
good,
you.
thanks.
What's your comment or question for Dr. Darren Green?
I would like to ask the good doctor. I don't have an eating habit. Let me put it this way. I hate food. When I see food, it doesn't really attract me. I live more on liquid. And as soon as I have something to eat, I need to go to sleep.
Wow, this is quite extreme. Do you feel unhealthy as a result of this? Or do you feel that you have energy levels during the day? Are you able to function normally?
Yeah, it works.
No.
Well, thank you so much. I'm looking at Doctor.
Yeah, great
nodding your
question.
head. What's going
Certainly,
on
it's not an uncommon complaint that she has. So I think one of the things that need to be looked at is, when you do eat, we speak about magie vol oogjes toe.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I
some
feel
people
that.
have an exaggerated response to that. It's got to do, obviously, with your sugar levels as well. So she would have to be screened for things like diabetes, particularly. Postprandial, in other words, after eating a meal. What's happening to her glucose levels within 30 minutes after eating? And then, of course, with that, you also find like the engine of a car loses power sometimes as it goes up a hill. Interesting enough, you get the gallbladder insufficiency syndromes as well that need to be looked at, because the gallbladder is essential in the digestion of food. It releases, obviously, what we call bowel juice, so forth, that helps. Those enzymes act on the absorbed food to break it down even further so it can be absorbed. So certainly worth a visit, definitely. It's very difficult functioning on energy levels that dip so low, and they can affect your mood and your relationships at work quite adversely. So I think physically she'll need a really good examination and checkup, and that needs to be investigated.
Who should Zanel speak to about this?
She
Is there a specialist?
Yeah, she should probably start by seeing a gastroenterologist, or a physician that will start a relationship with a gastroenterologist.
Zanel, I know there are a lot of people that
I
are...
would like to ask the good doctor, is there any remedy that I can start using just to get my eating habit up?
Yeah, I think what's important is to actually get an idea of what's happening to your blood sugar levels. So start off by just asking your doctor or the pharmacist to give you a sugar HGT monitor to check your sugar, what's happening in the morning, to see when you feel like that, what is actually happening in the blood, and then to take it from there. And then obviously look at what you're eating. What's the composition of the food you're eating? Are they high GI foods that are spiking your sugar? Are they low GI foods that are lasting a longer time? What's the relationship of those food groups? And then you'll combine the services of a good dietitian with your physician.
So now we wish there was a silver bullet or an easy answer, but I think you're going to need to see at least your physician, or at least go into a clinic at a pharmacy, get your blood sugar tested first thing in the morning. But thank you so much for sharing with us. I think a lot of people out there are feeling very similarly to you. So thank you for sharing your thoughts and your questions with us this morning. Well, we're going to continue our discussion. One more session this morning. We are talking about being hangry this morning, the relationship between emotion and food.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
And look who has giggled and sauntered his way to Studio Stuart Taylor. We love you, man. I'm struggling to know where to put my hands. I feel like we should be embracing, man. This couch is like a snug.
It is a snug couch.
So you were listening from way on the other side of our Mac Cafe, and then you just had to come and join the conversation. You've got a question for the doc?
I did. I want to know about fair diet. So what is better? Do I have to do intermittent fasting, which means, as far as I understand, means fast for like a long time and then eat your meals? Or should I eat the small meals regularly in order to get rid of the central area?
Yes, great question. What science is actually showing is we thought that the brain could use no other source of energy but glucose to work. We thought that the human brain could only use glucose as its source of fuel, until, obviously, the discovery that ketone bodies are just as effective in creating, obviously, that energy for the brain to utilize. The big problem is that your body only gets to a phase and stage where it uses ketone bodies as the source of fuel in the brain after 2 to 3 days of changeover of your diet and the available sugars. So whether you're doing intermittent fasting or whether you're doing low carb, high fat, etc., it's interesting. I'm not advocating for any of those individually. What I'm saying is that you need to understand how the pathway works in the body. So basically, you use up the sugar in the blood first, then the sugar that's stored as glycogen in the liver. When that's depleted, you move on to the glycogen stored in the muscles. When that's depleted, you actually start digesting the muscle itself. I've just come from the Cape Epic, where they can't keep up with the metabolic needs for the energy that they're busy, burning. So what your body does, if it doesn't get enough calories and it can't convert those calories quick enough, it breaks down the muscle and starts even eating away at the muscle.
When does it eat down the fat? It seems
fat
to be
happens
skipping a stage here.
No, the fat's there. So remember, these guys don't have fat. That's
okay.
But for us privileged few that have fat, the fat will be burnt first.
So the answer is enter the Cape Epic. I think that was
Then I'll be okay. I'll be okay.
Well, Dr. Darren Green, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
this
you.
morning.
Thank
And
you.
Stuart Taylor, we are looking forward to hearing all about your new show coming up. So
Lovely.
you're going to be hanging out with us.
I will. I'll hang.
And Doc, we will see you next week.
That was a great chat.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, man.